Hey, it's Steph, and welcome to the Straight Up with Steph podcast, where we have real discussions around health and life and just trying to be better at both. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Straight Up with Steph. Today is part 2 of my 2-part series with Built by Brianne. Last time we talked about how she helps dental hygienists with strength training, how she helps us improve our muscle imbalances and postural issues, and why using a program like hers is crucial for us in dentistry. Today, we're going to talk more about strength training, why it's so important for us. We'll talk about some exercises that we should do, maybe ones that we shouldn't do. And we're also going to talk about some myths that are out there, like women being afraid of bulking up if they strength train, thinking that group fitness or HIIT classes are all that they need. And what about posture bras? We're going to talk about all of that and more today with Built by Brianne. So before we started the podcast today, you were kind of walking me through like the cycle of how someone gets injured, because I had asked Brianne about people getting surgery. I feel like that is something also that's relatively common in dentistry, and they think that they've got back pain, so they must need back surgery, or their wrist is bothering them, so they must need like wrist surgery, and maybe that is the case. But Brianne kind of walked me through how cumulative damage happens in the muscles. And I just wanted you to repeat that because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because my dad is this way and it drives me crazy. Like, oh, the doctor told me I need carpal tunnel. Well, I got to schedule that now. And, he's very healthy actually, but he's 74, right? So his body's been through some wear and tear. But I'm like, just because your doctor says you need carpal tunnel surgery, like, doesn't mean you do. But anyways, I'm not a doctor. You know your body best. If that's what you feel you need, you know, you be your own advocate, right? I'm a big fan of getting second opinions. But the thing is, they go over this in corrective exercise is there's this cumulative injury cycle, right? It starts with tissue trauma, right? And you probably don't feel it, but if you're like, oh, I have this knot, it won't go away, it's always there. Okay, well, that's why, right? That tissue trauma inflammations leading to knots, and this is a simplified version, leads to muscle imbalances and it leads to injury. And so people sometimes get injured even though they don't have pain. Well, that's great. You're kind of lucky, but like you're going to continue getting injured until we break that cycle. Ugh, I just talked to somebody yesterday. She's like, yeah, I know it's great to be fit, to help me in my career, but every time I work out, I get injured. This is why, right? You have imbalances and you're basically just doing more damage. And this is why I share my knowledge, because I'm not the first person to talk about this. But once I do talk about it, they're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Why is nobody else talking about it, right? And it's more proactive versus reactive. It is. It is.
It's much easier to just tell someone like do a bunch of bicep curls or go do some lunges, but it's a lot harder to be like, let me watch your form. Let me see what imbalances you have and let's work from there, So
Yeah,
I
but
feel like what you're
also
doing is pretty hard.
I don't think it's hard at all. I mean, I'll be honest with people when they're on call with me, they're like, if I just have time for 30-minute workouts. I'm like, I'm not your girl. I can't help you in 30 minutes. Like,
Okay.
I'm not going to give you a 2-hour workout, but like when we're fixing and correcting imbalances, like we have to put in the work and the time. But that being said, I have clients who work out only 2 days a week all the time and they see results, right? So, while that's not ideal, I think 3 to 4 days is a nice split. I do what works best for my client, right? If my assistant has 5 kids, right? Now she's moving across the country, however many days before school starts, right? Like she's in a busy season right now. I totally got off topic of what we're talking to, but I think my biggest thing is the majority of clients that I work with, they're already working out. You're a perfect example. You were doing Orange Theory and I'm like, oh my God, you're making everything fucking worse. So if you're going to put in, or I have clients, oh, I work out 5 to 6 days a week and you're having pain, like I don't want to say you're wasting your time, but you kind of are. Like you shouldn't have pain. You shouldn't be taking time and effort and energy, whether you're working out at home or driving to the gym, spending 45 minutes or an hour multiple times a week, and you don't, A, you're still having pain, or B, the other thing I see all the time is, oh, I want to get toned up. Well, how long have you been working out like this? 5 years? Well, and you're not toned up. Like you're not training efficiently, right? Like fitness is a perfect example of this. It's just the diet culture of fitness, right? Group fitness. I am not a fan of it. And if you don't like me saying that, I'm not trying to, tell you what to do. You do you, but like, it's not going to solve your problem.
I know, so Brianne gives me a hard time sometimes because I did do Orange Theory for, I think it was like 6 or 7 years. Okay. And I didn't know, this was way before I kind of started talking about ergonomics, but I was in quite a bit of pain back then too. And it's just interesting, like to know now what I wish I would have known back then. But Orange Theory is a quote unquote hit, their version of hit.
Right.
And basically, it gets your heart rate up, you sweat, you think you're going to die, you leave exhausted. And that's what I was conditioned to think what a good workout was. But like Brianne said, I was actually, I mean, I was doing, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, but I was doing movements like overhead presses and chest presses when I really shouldn't have been doing that because of the imbalances that I have. And I was literally making everything worse. But that is what, unfortunately, our culture does us disservice in a lot of ways, with like junk food and
Yeah.
these group fitness or hit type things or beach body or whatever it is. And it's good to get your heart rate up from what I've learned, but we really need to kind of slow down and be intentional with strength training.
Yeah. Well, and I have clients too. God, you said so many pieces of gold there. I don't even know where to begin, but I've had clients who, they feel like if they don't work out, they're going to make things worse. Or my
Yeah.
client Megan's a perfect example. She did yoga. She worked with multiple personal trainers. She did P90X, Zumba. She did it all. She was 19 years in. Until she started working with me, she's like, I never knew. She was trying to work out. Like I said, she works 4.5 days a week still. She's like, I was just doing it to not make things worse. I never thought I'd get rid of my pain, right? But it's about being intentional with the training that you're doing, because I have people all the time like, I've never worked out like this before. Like slow and controlled, low impact. Like your body has damage, right? People say I feel broken. Whatever terms you want to use, you have imbalances. There is damage that needs to be quote unquote corrected or fixed. And if you're going and doing HIIT or pushing through pain or doing these momentum based like CrossFit, when I hear that from my hygienist, I'm like, holy shit! Like I'd rather you not work out at all ever in your life than do CrossFit. Like it's just momentum based anything, or just going through motions and moving fast, like in beach body or whatever. Like you're not using time under tension. You're doing things that are very high impact, which is damaging to your joints and your connective tissues. And again, this is like blanket statements, right? If you're having pain, these are most likely your issues, but that doesn't mean you can't ever do an overhead press. You can't ever do a chest press. When we started working together, you're like, I feel like I'm restoring my body. And I think you said that
Yeah.
really perfectly. But then guess what? We started to implement back in the overhead press and the chest. Like it's not like you can't do a chest press the rest of your life. It's
Yeah,
not
and I think
like
that
that.
that's where people get confused sometimes is because sometimes they'll see a post from you that is like why I don't recommend chest press for hygienists. And it's like when you have that imbalance, don't do it. But once you get the imbalances worked out, then sure, you can do some chest presses, you can go overhead. But
Yeah.
so let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about those two, the chest press and anything overhead. Why don't you recommend those for a hygienist who has imbalances?
I'm laughing because there's a lot of things I recommend to skip momentarily. It's basically like we have to take 2 steps back, or take 1 step back, realign everything to take 2 steps forward, right?
Okay.
So, well, I think the biggest thing with with both of these, overhead press, or like if people doing upright rows, or the chest
Anything that
press.
engages the traps, right? Pretty much.
Well, the upright rows hit the traps a lot, so that's why I don't
Yeah.
love it, because it's like you shouldn't have pain. And if that's comfortable for you and you have tight traps, you reach out to me because you are an anomaly. But the biggest thing is, like I said, because your shoulders are rounded, they're not at optimal position, which affects your scapula. I guarantee you don't have range of motion overhead. So why
Yeah.
would you do an overhead press when you don't have the range of motion or the capability to do it, right? Especially with tight pecs, right? You're working in you're like half-assing it. You're like doing a half a range of motion, right? You don't have, it's kind of like when you chew a piece of gum, right? You want your muscles to be pliable and everything. Like you have to lengthen those short, tight muscles and then strengthen the weak muscles. It's a little bit more methodical than that, but so that they start to work together, because otherwise you're just working the same overused muscles over and over because you're not training optimally. You're
So
literally doing
for
you're working like half of your body, for better lack of explanation.
so if we're talking about a chest press or like a chest fly or something like that, maybe even a push up. I don't know. But our chest, if we have imbalances, our chest is really tight. So the muscles are just extremely tight. And when we're doing a chest press or a fly or something, that's just overworking that already tight and overworked muscle, which is just going to compound or make our muscle imbalance worse. Am I correct?
Essentially, yes, but the
I'm
goal
trying to
is
make
to
it real simple.
realign. We want to realign the shoulders, though, right? Because you can,
Okay.
that's why people tell you to stretch your chest, right? Because it's tight. Okay, you stretch, but then it goes back. You stretch, and then it goes
Yeah.
back. So our goal is to lengthen that by stretching, but then we have to strengthen the back so that our shoulder joint is working together optimally, right? Or not optimally,
Hmm.
but it's at more of an optimal position. Like my client, Lisa, she's like, I stand up taller, no more rounded shoulders for me, because otherwise stretching is just like half of the equation, right? It's not going to
Yeah.
change anything by, I mean, to be honest with you, a chest fly is stretching the chest under load, right? You're
Oh,
using
okay.
weight, but that's not going to put your shoulder joint back where it needs to be. Does that make sense? I know that was a lot.
Yeah. Well, I just remember when I tried your started your program for the first time, it was very um focusing on foam rolling the chest, and trying to relax these chest muscles. And then it was very focused on strengthening the upper back muscles. And I would imagine that's to kind of relax this, get the shoulder or make the back strong enough to like kind of get the shoulders back. And then we could incorporate some of those like overhead movements. Because it's
Yeah.
safer from what I've learned for you to when what you just said to like overhead press when your shoulders in alignment, not when it's up here. And I remember a really good example of this is before I met you, I was doing a kettlebell um, uh like I was training with someone who did kettlebells, and I was like, why is the Turkish get up so hard for me and why does it hurt so bad? Because I'm holding something overhead, I'm trying to like get up, and my shoulder, it wasn't going. I could feel it too. I'm like, this does not feel right, and I ended up hurting my shoulder, and I had to stay off of it for like 6 weeks, and that was because I had that imbalance. But now that I know what I know, from thanks to you, I'm trying not to do stupid stuff like that anymore. But I think people just need to realize that, yes, you can do these exercises that Brianne maybe wants you to lay off for a while because you need to kind of rehab, and then you can slowly incorporate those back in.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, because you shouldn't. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just being aware of your body, right? If something doesn't feel
Yeah.
right, it's probably not right, right? If an
Yeah.
exercise, if you're skipping it because it causes more pain, there's an indicator, right? I think people are doing a really good job of being aware, because even clients will come to me like, I know my ergo's not good, I'm chicken winging. Like, people are just being more aware of what their body's doing, and I think that's key, because if you're just going through your 30-minute workout, not paying attention to anything, well, what good does that do, right? That's why my
Like, what are you
clients all the
actually
time,
doing?
I'm like, even my client, she's like, I know I'm not feeling it where I should be. And she's new. And I'm like, I'm so stoked to be working with you, because you are doing such a good job of understanding where to feel things, where not to feel things. And when it feels off, it is off, right? So then you send me a video, and then
Yeah.
you take my feedback and kind of implement it so you're doing things efficiently. So and if you just want to move your body and burn calories and go through the motions and do group fitness, like, you do you. But like, if you seriously want to like get out of pain and have like a resilient body, I love to use that word, like, you have to fix your imbalances.
Well,
100%.
and it's about I mean, I'm 42, just turned 42, and I am just really it's hitting me in the face like a ton of freaking bricks how important it is to maintain your muscle, to build muscle, to strength train, and how big of an effect that has on like literally every other system that we have in our body. So it's not like what you said, it's not just about looking good in a bikini. It's not just about like losing weight or toning up or whatever. It's about like protecting our future selves. And if we don't
Mm-hmm.
have, can you imagine being 80 years old and not being able to get up from the toilet, or not being able to get up if you fall down, or not being able to carry your groceries in? Like, I cannot imagine living that way. And so that's why now I am so focused on increasing my protein, strength training with intention, doing things on purpose, not just going into like Orange Theory and getting a sweat and burning 2,000 calories or whatever it is. It's just like
Yeah.
trying to really slow down and take care of ourselves. So, we have talked about a couple exercises not to do, and I know that you can't say everyone should do these few exercises, but like, what what are a couple of your favorite ones, or maybe not just exercises, but like areas of the body that hygienists really should be focusing on as far as
Mm-hmm.
strengthening?
Yeah, that question's a lot easier for me to answer than just specific exercises because guess what?
Yeah.
I see people doing exercises and I give them all the time, but they do them wrong because their body's
Yeah.
compensating. So, like I said earlier, I can give you all the exercises, but if your body's compensating, you're not doing them right, like it's not going to change. So, I think the biggest one, the muscles I mentioned earlier, I think actually serratus anterior is a big one because people don't. I've never seen a fitness program that's included a serratus anterior.
Which
Like
one is
it's
that?
not. It wraps around your
Can you
rib
show?
cage. It
Okay.
wraps around your rib cage. So, like for
Okay.
example, I have clients do like weighted up pads, and they always do it wrong. And I had my client the other day. I'm like, look, you need to put your, because they were doing it, one at a time. But I said, drop the weight. I want you to put your hand there so that you can feel the muscle working. And she's like, oh my god, that made such a difference, right? Because you need to know what muscle you're working. Well, if you actually want to see change, but the other thing is I really like glutes and hamstrings. They are always, always, always underactive in hygienists, mostly because you sit all day, right? And whether you're on a saddle stool or not, you still
It's
typically
still
don't
sitting.
have yeah, it is. But a lot of people come to me and they're like, my saddle stool made my pain worse because they don't have the glutes and hamstrings.
Oh, okay.
So that's another, and you were a perfect example of this because you had an anterior pelvic tilt and then you would go deadlift. And when you have that excessive curvature of your lumbar and you're deadlifting like that, it's just, you're not even working. Well, you might be working your hamstrings, but you're putting all this excessive tension on your lumbar spine. And it's just, like your lumbar spine or your erectors, all those muscles surrounding that area should be engaged. The primary movers in that hip hinge, which is like a deadlift, are the glutes and the hamstrings. So
And
those
that's
are
interesting
two.
too, because back then that was my issue that really made me like focus on ergonomics, and it made me scared that I wasn't going to be able to do it anymore. It was because of my low back pain. And I was like, this is how dumb I am back then, is I was like, oh my God, my lower back hurts. I need to go strength train. And so I would like seriously load up that freaking bar and do really heavy deadlifts. And I was doing it with poor form, way too heavy of weight, and I was just making my back pain like 10 times worse. So anyway, just want to throw that in there.
Well, you're not dumb because I see this all the time. I see this every single week. People are doing things wrong day in and day out because again, they have imbalances and their movements are faulty. But I think the other thing that is problematic that I see is a lot of times, I think women in general, a lot of hygienists, they're so uber flexible. So when they're doing the hinge, they feel their hamstrings, but their chest is dropping. The lower your
Okay.
chest goes, you're working the low back. And so it's like you need to, because your hips are tight, so they like stop. I could show you. But basically when your hips stop going back, then they keep like lowering the dumbbell. Is that making sense?
Yeah, it does.
Should I show you?
Yeah, if you want to. We're on video.
Okay. Stop. Second ago. So basically, like once your head stop going back, you need to stop, right? And then you cough. But a lot of hygienists, I would say 9 out of 10, I see them, their hips stop because they're tight, and then they keep lowering, they keep lowering, they keep lowering. Do you see my spine in there? The
Yep.
little nap? Like that's not how you do a deadlift.
Okay.
So like, yes, we want to work the hamstrings, but we need to make sure that we're working them kind of to our full range of motion. Or I see
Yeah.
this all the time. Take a reverse bite, for example. You want to stop here. I say Jesus on the cross, right? So that's a good example. But people are coming, it's like hygienists always want to do more than they need to.
Yeah.
They're coming all the way back and they're kind of sort of down their shoulders, right? And I'm like, whoa, like, no, like it's just too
Like you don't have to
much.
do
So
that.
it's really hard for me to articulate to hygienists that like less is more because I think your producers, right? And at work, you're always thinking, I have
It's
to work
pretty
out
much
more and
opposite
I
of
have to work
how we all
faster.
think.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, no, like you need to slow down because guess
Yeah.
what? Breathing is a big part of strength training. If you're tense and tight, you're working more muscles than you need to. But it's those overactive muscles taking over. So then your weak muscles
Yeah.
still stay asleep, right? You need to like be relaxed and like, within reason, right? There's times where you need to brace, but like if you're just a ball of tension all the time, like you're
What is
never
that
going to
doing?
change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So easier said than done,
Well,
of course.
when we talk about strength training, and I'm hoping that this myth, because that's really what it is, is slowly going away. But what if a woman in particular hears strength training, what if they're scared of bulking up? Can you just talk about that for a second?
Yes, let me hold back my laughter because this has been around for so long. Just like carbs are bad,
It's
right?
so dumb. It's
Well, if
so
you want to build
dumb.
muscle and you don't eat carbs, good luck. Why do you think
Yeah.
bodybuilders eat chicken and rice? There's a reason. But anyways, I digress. We don't have enough testosterone in our bodies to
Yeah.
build muscle. Like, and I might look a little thick right now, but let's just like Stephanie, I'm now, my early 40s and there's something going on with my hormones. So I'm working on getting that tested. But anyways, it's just not true. It's just 100% not true. And guess what? Like if you want to bulk and build and be a bodybuilder, you have to dedicate hours every single
Yes.
day to bulk. Your 3 to 4
Yeah.
weeks, days a week strength training sessions are not going to bulk you up. Like, and if they are, you're probably taking roids because
I know. Like,
there's
it
just
takes a
no
lot.
way.
Well,
There's
it takes
no
a
way
lot,
it's
I
going to
think, for men
happen.
and women to bulk up like that. Like, and yeah,
Yeah.
like what you're saying, you have to dedicate a hell of a lot of time, ton of protein, like be eating all day pretty much. So, if you're scared of bulking up by doing strength training, especially the way that Brianne approaches it, that is 100% not a concern. And
Well, and
muscle looks
also,
good, like
that's the thing. If you
muscle.
want definition,
Yeah, if
you
you
have to
want to be
build
toned,
muscle.
that means strength training. And a lot of people like it's fat that makes us look
Yeah.
bulky,
And
it's not the
that's what I was
muscle.
going to go. Yeah, that's what I was going to go into next because the more muscle you have, the less fat you have. That's why you look lean and toned. But, and I could talk more about that, but I would say there's this doctor. I love her so much. I'm obsessed with her. Her name is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. And her whole
Same.
thing is muscle centric medicine because she's like, you don't need to take pills. You need to build muscle, right? You're
Yeah.
obese because you don't have enough muscle. And the cool thing about that too is people don't realize like, oh, I gotta go get my sweat on. You don't have to sweat during a workout. You're just burning calories. You burn 400, 500 calories, 800. I don't even give a shit how many. You're going to go eat dinner and you're going to be right back where you are. But when you're
Yeah.
strength training, and I'm not talking about beach body, I'm talking about actual physical strength training where you're paying attention to progressive overload and time under tension and all these little variables that matter to build muscle. Then your body has to work to repair that muscle tissue 24 hours later, 48 hours later, right?
Which
And
takes energy, which burns calories, right?
yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So you're burning calories for 2 or
Yeah.
3 days, depending on, how heavy you're lifting, for a whole day or two later than just your hour-long fitness class. So it's just
Yeah.
so ass backwards the way that
It
like the
is.
fitness industry thinks. Unless
But
you want
that's
to be
so much.
super skinny, but that's not my
Yeah.
vibe
I mean,
at all.
honestly, who wants that? I don't know. That's how I grew up is like people, you wanted to be skinny and I was never that way. I've always been built. I've always had muscle. And now it's like, God, I just really want to hold on to, to what I have for as long as I have. But what is your opinion on posture bras?
Oh my God.
Are they a
So
miracle?
yeah, right. Whoever invented
I'm
those
being
probably is a
sarcastic.
millionaire. Um, so basically, you don't ever want to force your body to do anything, right? Like you're
Yeah.
really, or people say like back braces. Cool. Well, how are you ever going to strengthen your core when you have a back brace on all day long? You know what I mean? Like it just
Yeah.
they're just
It's a
it's a way to
band-aid.
make I mean, I guess it's a way to make money and people want a quick fix. And we're in the Amazon world, right? Everybody says that nowadays, but if you want to try it, go ahead, but I will bet my life on it that it's not going to do anything for you and it'll probably be more uncomfortable and make things worse at the end of the day. So I am not a fan of those,
Yeah,
to say
I'm
the
not
least.
either. Like, and it's funny too, because I did some research on them and actually on the manufacturer instructions, it's like, don't wear it all day, wear it for an hour or two. And of course, people are like wearing them all day, they're sleeping in them. And it's like, oh my God, I feel like you're making your problems just a
I
hundred
didn't know
times
it was
worse.
that common, but like what's wearing it for an hour gonna even do versus 8
I,
hours? Like you're forcing your
I
body
think
to do
it's
something unnatural.
Well, their claim is that they're, forcing the muscles to engage that haven't engaged. And so those muscles might be like atrophied. And so they don't want them to be contracted for longer than an hour or two a day. But if you have an atrophied muscle, like that's even too much, like an hour or two a day. I don't know. but I just I don't really see the use. What I do see the use for is actually strength training, like making sure that you
Yeah.
can hold your body in that position. I just want you to share like where people can find you, how they can get in touch with you. I can't recommend her program enough. Like I said, I've taken it a few times, and it's just so nice when she can actually just watch you and assess you and tell you not what you're doing wrong, but kind of, because that's what we need to learn to grow. So how can people get
Hmm.
in touch with you?
Yeah, well, and before I give you like my handles and all that, it's like the people who come to me, they want to learn. They want to learn
Yeah.
how to lift a per and know, you know, how to do a certain exercise. Well, why wouldn't you, right? So that you have that knowledge to take with you. And so I think, I'm all about, yes, learning. And I think hygienists are kind of along that same line. So if that's your vibe, great. We might be a great fit. But kind of all things built by Brianne. So builtbybrianne.com is my website, built by Brianne on Instagram. I have a Facebook group that is called Fitness Tips for Dental Hygienists. Where else? I'm on Pinterest, built by Brianne. I'm on YouTube too, but everything's kind of private for my clients, so it doesn't really do me. But my podcasts are there. So I have the podcast is called Live for
So, okay.
Longevity.
So they can just Google Built by Brianne, and I'm sure that all kinds of stuff will pop up. But you put out such good
Yeah.
content too. Specifically, I mean, I'm not on Pinterest, but I see your stuff on Instagram, and it's just so useful. So definitely give her a follow there. You're just you're a wealth of knowledge, honestly, and I'm sure that I'm going to have you back on again. But thank you so much for sharing what you know and doing what you're doing for us, because it's so needed.
Well, and you all deserve to feel good. So if I can do my part, one little hygienist at a time, not little hygienist, but little hygienist at a time, I'll do it. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, thank you, Brianne. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.